Now, you've used the Lockdown Browser application before, or is this something that's brand new to you?
I have not used it, no.
Okay, so I'm actually going to start at the beginning. Maybe that's a better place. Your LTI integration for Respondus Lockdown Browser should already be set up. So basically, once your instructor navigates to the course that they have rights to, in fact, let me do this all the way out and start back. So this is my instance of Canvas here at Respondus. So when I log in, these are my faculty level credentials. I'm simply going to navigate to the course that I have faculty rights to. So for me, it's Geography 101. And then once that LTI setup had been completed, it's just a matter of clicking on the Lockdown Browser dashboard. So this should already be set up for you now, as is. And then once the monitor settings have been applied, they're going to show up in the same dashboard. So presently, you might just see two columns. You might have the column for quizzes and the column for Lockdown Browser. If the integration component for monitor has been completed, you'll see the column for monitor. If not, you may only see the two columns. But once it is completed, you'd have access to the quizzes column, the Lockdown Browser column, and Respondus monitor. So the first step from a faculty perspective is opening up the dashboard, modifying your settings, and it's just using the context menu. And the first step always is to require the use of Lockdown Browser because Monitor can't be used without Lockdown Browser. Lockdown Browser is the base layer application for Monitor. Then within the framework of Lockdown Browser, there are a couple of settings that the instructor can enable for use. So depending on what your need is or what the faculty member's need is for that particular assessment, they may be taking advantage of a few of these items. If your instructors are allowing students to test remotely, I always recommend leaving this box unchecked because this allows for early exits. So early exits allows the student to safely leave the assessment in case there's some type of an emergency. So when a student's testing remotely, it could be that they lose their internet connection or maybe they need to leave for some type of an emergency. But either way, if this box is left unchecked, when the student goes to leave the assessment, they're going to be prompted with a dialog box that tells them if they continue to leave the assessment, their instructor will be notified. And then if they do continue to leave the assessment, they have to give the instructor a reason as to why they're leaving. Anytime a student takes advantage of an early exit, next to the context menu, there's going to a number will appear and it will show up in a bubble in the top right-hand corner of the context menu. And the bubble, I believe, is orange. So the number that populates inside that bubble will be in direct relationship to the number of students who took advantage of the early exit. The instructor can then come back and review any early exits if there are any for this assessment. Harry, are you allowing students to take assessments with iPads, or is that something that's not supported, or you don't have any plans to support?
I don't think so. I don't think at this time, at least.
Okay. If you decide to revisit that, let me know. And if that is the case, you'd be adding the requirement here. There's a knowledge base article here that takes you to information about the iPad. I'm not going to cover it in this session. I know you're not using it. But if you decide at some point that you are planning to do that, please let me know, and I'm happy to walk you through those pieces.
Okay.
This allows access to specific external web domains. This, in a nutshell, at a domain URL level, will allow you to link to ebooks. So if you have faculty that are interested in that piece, please make sure that you point them in this direction, checking the box and adding the domain URL there.
Okay.
The next option enables calculator on the toolbar. So there's a standard calculator or a scientific calculator that's available. It's really nice for math and science. It populates in the Lockdown Browser toolbar once the assessment is launched. And then the last option enables printing from the toolbar. This just allows a remote student the ability to print the assessment if it has to be taken in the presence of a proctor. Some instructors allow this. They might have the requirement that the proctor has to sign it before the assessment is returned to the faculty member. It's not something you see widely used in higher ed, but I just want to make sure you understand what it is. Okay, so once the Monitor webcam settings have been enabled, you'd have this option that will appear for your faculty. And then you have a couple of options in terms of how they elect the testing portion of it. So the first option makes it mandatory that everybody taking the assessment has to take it using Respondus Monitor. The next option, the either-or option, allows the student to decide how they want to take the assessment. So either-or allows the student to either take the assessment using the webcam remotely, or they can take it in a proctored lab using the Lockdown Browser alone. This dialog box that populates will populate regardless of the option that's selected for the very first time, and this is something that can be customized by the school. So the customizations portion, what I was referencing in terms of walking through this webinar the last time we spoke, when you log into the admin panel at respondus.com with your login credentials, and this is something that I think Dan is going to be doing for you or someone on the team, they're going to be using their user ID, their credentials. There's a product area link underneath the section for Respondus Monitor, the settings. Here is where you can make these customizations. So here, let me go back. This dialog box here is actually found here. Message to instructors when Respondus Monitor is enabled. So this is what I have customized on my server level, and this is what populates in that box for me. But for your purposes, it could be that you're pointing instructors to, perhaps you or somebody else at the school for additional information. Maybe you're pointing them to the availability of the Respondus resources. I'm not quite sure how you're organizing that portion of it, or if maybe you're restricting access to specific groups, but that's where you want to communicate this information.
Okay.
You can change it, you can save it here. And then you can save your settings. And that just pushes out the message to everyone that's using the application. Now, back inside that dashboard, I want to talk about this either-or option just briefly, explain it a little bit, and then we can move on. But the either-or option, if you decide to use this, you are allowing the student to decide what method they prefer. If you decide to use the either-or option, there's this explanation here for the faculty member. Students taking the exam in the proactive lab will still need to use Lockdown Browser, so they are going to be subject to the Lockdown Browser piece. The instructor has to provide an access code for the exam. That access code is placed here. The instructor then types the access code into the device, and that is how the machine knows how to turn off the requirement for monitor, and that's how the machine understands it's only a Lockdown Browser test. It sounds like in your particular scenario, you're going to be taking advantage of the requirement across the board. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to work with the requirement across the board. Once they elect the option they want to use, and I don't know if you have a policy or maybe a one-sheet instruction that you're providing to faculty, but you may even want to provide something to them, letting them know that this is a setting they're using. But the startup sequence, this is what I was referring to in terms of the remaining customizations. So the webcam check is mandatory. You can see it's grayed out. I can't alter this because the student must have a working webcam in order to use the application. But then there's a student photo. Any of these options can be unchecked. You may have a very definitive preference. You might have policy saying, please make sure to select all the options available to you. Show ID, environment check, and additional instructions. They all can be edited. The show ID, you can decide if you want to lock this up at an institution level, maybe have one policy that all your faculty use, or if you're going to allow them the option to customize this as they see fit. Often with distance learning programs, the student might not have a traditional photo ID, so it could be that you're asking them to provide a library card, maybe a BJ's wholesale card, something like that, but it must have their photo and must have their name. Environment check. This could be as simple or a little bit more complex depending on the type of an assessment that's being given. Often, if the assessment is for certification purposes, there might be a requirement that the school is mandating just in terms of the student using an external webcam, something that might give a little bit more of a flexible environment video. So some faculty might use something that says, please make sure that you're using an external webcam, show me a 360 view of your room. Please make sure to position the camera so that your hands and face are in the frame at all times. The additional instructions. This is something that our marketing team put together for us. It really just walks through proper testing etiquette, what to do, what not to do. Don't access phone, tablet, notes, etc. Don't communicate with other people. Please stay in your seat. Focus on the assessment. And then also what to do if there's an interruption. I like this additional instructions piece. I think it's nice. It gives the student exactly what they need to know in terms of taking the assessment. But Some schools might take it a step further. They may even include a code of conduct that the student is subject to, because the student has to accept and walk through all of these screens on the back end when they're walking through their assessment. So it's a nice final reminder if you wanted to put, some sort of an academic review policy in there. All of these edit text fields can be found in that same settings area for Respondus Monitor. So you'll notice here that the startup sequence allows you to walk through the webcam check, student photo, but here's where you get to edit all of that text. So there's edit default text here. And then if you want to lock this up so that instructors are only checking a few boxes to add their requirements, you can come up with a text you prefer, lock the text, and then once you lock that text, the instructor can't make any changes to it. So they would actually come into this dashboard. They wouldn't have the edit text fields next to it. They'd just be selecting the options and saving it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, just a couple of other things I want to make sure that we cover too. So back in that settings panel, you'll notice that there's a student terms of use. So when the student actually launches an assessment, there's a piece that they're signing off on that's between Respondus and the student. This is something that you can't customize the piece between Respondus and the student, but you can change or add on to this portion of it. So this is just allowing the institution to make any customization to that terms of use. A lot of institutions that are using this application, you might already have an online policy that you use when students are taking assessments online. It could be something that's part of your Canvas system. When they sign up to take an online course, they have to agree to XYZ. That's something that you can substitute in here if you like, or you can add it in addition to the text that we have here. This text is boilerplate content. It's gone through our legal department, so you're welcome to use it or add to it if you like, or you could wipe this out and add your own text. But you should be aware that this is customizable for you. Now, Harry, do you have admin credentials to your own instance, or is this something, have you talked to Dan about this and how this is going to work for you?
No, I have not yet.
Okay. You may want to walk through the video again, see what you like about it, see what changes you want to make, and then maybe forward the video to Dan, have him take a look as well. That's something that you might find useful, or he might find useful in walking through the settings. But one other piece I want to make sure you're both aware of, Monitor has a reporting link that's available within it. The reporting link allows you to run reports on your server for anyone using the Monitor application. So this is actually running a report on my server, and it's just going to give me some high-level information. So it'll tell me the courses that are using it, the instructor, how many sessions have been given with it, and the last activity. The lab session, this is specific to students taking assessments in a lab, but these numbers probably wouldn't make sense anywhere else outside of Respondus, only because this is our site and these are our users. So these are IT folks and some account managers doing some testing. You also have some information about seats that are activated, and you can determine activated seats by licensing term as well, and you can walk through some of the date time options in terms of running your ranges. So this is good information during the trial for you, because you can always go back, you can audit what faculty members have taken advantage of it. It's also a great way to go back and check with the faculty on what their feedback might be for the application. Any questions for me on the reporting at all?
No, not right now. Thanks.
It's a pretty simple step through in terms of setting the application up on the back end. I think for me, normally when a faculty member comes in and they use this application, you can see here now, I had added the requirements to save them, so it shows up under the column, lockdown browser is required, and then under the column for Respondus Monitor is being required. I'm just going to close this up. The minute I remove the requirement for lockdown browser, it wipes everything out because lockdown browser is the first step. But as a faculty member, when I come into this application, if I'm going in to add my requirements, it's just a matter of selecting the option. I might select one or two options here. This probably makes sense, typical. I might be requiring it across the board. This is the first message I see. And then if you decide to customize those settings and lock them up, I might be checking a couple boxes, clicking Save and Close. it shouldn't take a faculty member more than maybe 45 seconds to set up their assessments, especially if you're locking those text fields so that they're just electing options.
Yeah, no, it seems pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah, it's really simple to use. The integration is really, really tight. The piece that I want to also show you during the session is what's available on the back end, because from a quiz perspective, once that assessment has been given, this happens to be an assessment that's already been given here. When I click on this context menu, the video review option will populate, and this just allows faculty to come in and take a look at any session that might have been given using the applications. Now, at a really high level, when we talk about this, we always talk about the fact that Lockdown Browser was built as a deterrent. It was built as one more security measure to give your instructors more confidence when they're testing online. So this is just a quick snapshot. It will tell them, here are the students in the course that took the assessment, date it was completed, roughly how long it took, the duration, and the grades will pull from your grade center. And then the next three options refer to the automated flagging capability within the application. From my perspective as a faculty member, if I come in and I look at this dashboard quickly, I might just be doing a quick spot check. Maybe I'm looking at grades. Maybe I'm trying to determine, are there any unusual grades? Are there a couple of students with the same grade? Maybe that's something that I would find disturbing. I'd want to take a closer look at. Facial detection refers to the percent of time the student's face was detected in the frame. If the bar graph goes all the way to the end, that student was in the frame the entire session. Quite honestly, faculty will probably come in, look at grades. They'll probably look at the flags. The flags refer to the specific flags that were captured during that testing session. So it's suspicious behavior. And the total flag time refers to the amount of time of all the flagged events in total. So if I were looking at this, I'd probably come in, look at my... Not all the columns are sortable. I'd probably want to look at someone that had 5 flags. If I want to take a closer look at this video record, I click on the plus next to the student's name, and it will open up the record for me. So the thumbnails that are generated to the left have to do with the items that we checked as boxes that we wanted to see, but then also the entire video is available, but it's broken down into random thumbnails. If you look to the right, this will walk you through, it's a larger video box, but it also captures the flags directly underneath. So the flag segments and warnings, the first flag, missing, refers to the fact that the student is missing from the frame. So the faculty member can skip right to the flags. They could click on the date timestamp, and it will load the video from that point forward. The option for multiple refers to the fact that there's more than one person in the frame. And then the option for different refers to the fact that it's a different person in the frame than the person taking the assessment. Faculty member can watch as much of this as they like, or only the flags if they prefer. If their preference is to look at any of the thumbnails, they can easily just click on the thumbnail and watch it from that point forward. It records both audio as well as video. Now you'll notice when I look to the left, a number of items that appear. If you do have digital photos available on file for your students, you can work with our IT team. You can upload them for the purposes of comparison. Or you could simply just walk through the screens that you ask the student to provide. So in this instance, I asked the student to provide a photo, show an ID, walk through an environment check, the pre-exam thumbnail bridges the gap between the environment video and the time the student hits start on the opportunity for them to take out any additional or really engage in any activity that wouldn't be caught on camera. The exam start date refers to, or the exam start window refers to when the student started the assessment. And again, these are all randomly generated intervals. So as an instructor, this video portion, I can watch it from that point forward. A couple of things worth noting also would be captured within the flag segments and warnings if there's some type of an interruption in service, so a network connection, if the network connection goes down, that would be noted here. and it would tell you that it was an internet connection, and then it would try to reestablish a connection for a period of up to 3 minutes, and you'd actually see date timestamps that would tell you that, that it tried to establish a connection. Also, one other item that's noted here is if the student tries to manually pull out their webcam, so if they try to pull out their cord, it's going to tell you that the webcam was manually disconnected. Did you have any questions for me about the dashboard itself?
No, not right now. Thanks.
Yeah. It's a pretty simple walkthrough on this as well. Things to just be aware of from the administrative side. The videos are not stored on your server, so it doesn't on your server. I'm guessing that that's a conversation you and Dan would have as well. And the videos are stored for a period of up to 5 years. The first year is live storage. The next 4 years, it goes into cold storage on our cloud servers through Amazon Web Services. If the course, so in terms of course deletion and course copy, the videos will remain intact as long as the courses are not deleted. If you disable the courses but then re-enable the courses somewhere down the line, as long as those courses have not been deleted, you'll be able to restore that video connection. It might take 12 to 24 hours to restore the connection, but it would be available for you. And the videos are available for a one-time download if there's some type of an academic review process you need to walk through for the student. From a security perspective, the only people that have access to your LMS, even to this point right here, would be the LMS administrator that has the proper credentials and the instructor that has the proper credentials to this course. So that nobody from Respondus, even just to give you an example, no one on our team could ever have access to any of your video content. You'd have to have the proper level access credentials to the LMS itself.
Okay.
Okay? Are there any other questions at all?
Can you scroll down for a second?
Yeah, sure. Let me know if you need me to go further down the page.
Okay, no, that's good.
Okay. And as I said, I'm recording this, so I'm definitely going to push the YouTube back out to you, and then definitely take a look. Let me know if there's anything else that comes to mind. I try to cover this a little bit comprehensively, give you the front end, give you the back end that you need for the customizations. But sometimes, you're not even sure really what your questions are until you go off and you have a different conversation with somebody else, or you think about what we walked through.
No, agreed. But no, I really appreciate this. I've kind of got pretty much full walkthrough of everything that I could possibly think of. That's what I'm trying to think of if I have any questions, but I don't think I do right now.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe some questions will arise when I talk to Dan about the situation.
Okay. So I definitely, on my side, this was pretty much the walkthrough that I wanted to, just to make sure that you felt comfortable in understanding how all the settings were applied, where everything lived on the back end, and to make the customizations for what you see in that panel. It's a pretty simple setup. From a faculty perspective, they seem to really respond to it because everything is in the LMS, so it's easy for them. They come to one place, they set their requirements, and then on the back end, if they want to review something, everything is available on the back end for them. I cannot stress enough to you that from our side, I think the best case scenario when you're working with faculty is to get them involved in a training. Definitely let us help you onboard them. A couple of other pieces for you that are really critical, I think. When you're on our website, the monitor application, we have a host of resources that have been built into this application. So just even navigating here, there are introduction videos. This just gives an overview of the application. This literally walks through how to set up requirements for the application when you're using both applications.
Lockdown browser is a custom
It's
browser.
4.5 minutes in length. Walks through everything we just walked through from the inside of that dashboard and how to add your requirements. There are some very nice pieces that are built that were really built to make your job simpler when working with faculty. There's a student overview video. Certainly faculty, I would encourage them always to give a sample test when using this application just to make sure the student's technology is working properly. Often faculty will link to something like this movie or maybe a quick start guide and ask one question just to confirm the students walk through all the pieces, they understand what it is and how it works. There are definitely quick start guides that are available. They are all LMS specific. So when using this type of technology, make sure you take advantage of our resources. There is absolutely no reason that you need to start from sort of base level 1 in rebuilding resources for faculty. The information to add for your syllabus, also extremely helpful. This syllabus information gives a walkthrough of what the application is. It links to videos for the application, quick start guides. There's even an area where the instructor can actually just plug in that lockdown browser URL. It walks through a help center check that is available within the lockdown browser application, further confirming that everything's working, the webcam, system and network check. And then there's also a testing etiquette section that just kind of walks through best practices when you're taking an assessment remotely. So some of these pieces, your faculty, if you push it out to faculty, they'll say, hey, this is great. We're going to use it as is. We're just going to customize where the URL goes and a couple of items. But it's got some great information in here, so it's a solid place to start for anybody that's looking to use the application.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so definitely, if you have any follow-up questions for me, please let me know. And please let me know if you decide that you want the training webinar done. And again, I would strongly encourage it. It's a great way to get faculty off in a good place. And also, gives them an opportunity to ask as many questions as they like. We can do the Q&A, and I'm certainly happy to record that for the group as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually just got the list of individuals who will be needing that training. So I'm going to figure out exactly when we want to deliver that.
Okay. The only thing that, from my perspective, I am traveling. I have commitments to both EDUCAUSE and OLC. So I have a blackout date. So do you think, in terms of setting up a webinar, do you think that might happen in the next week or two, or are you looking a little bit longer in term?
Probably more like closer to December, or at least mid-November.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so I'll definitely be back by then. I'm gone the end of November, end of October, and actually the beginning, so like around I believe the 11th or 12th, somewhere in that time frame, and then October 31st, which is, I believe, EDUCAUSE.
Okay.
So I'll be back after the second weekend in November, and I'm happy to schedule this for you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so I will. I'll make sure I'll stop the recording at this point,